There's a version of your day that nobody talks about honestly. You wake up, and before your eyes have fully adjusted, before you've even felt yourself come back into your body, your hand is already reaching for the phone. Not because you decided to, not because there's something specific you need to check, just because that's the first thing you do now. It's automatic, unconscious, a reflex you don't remember choosing. And the notifications start arriving. Other people's urgencies, other people's problems, other people's lives moving at a speed that immediately makes you feel like you're already behind. And your day hasn't started yet. Then comes the traffic, or the commute, and instead of silence, more input, a podcast, music, anything to fill the space, anything to avoid sitting with your own thoughts for a few minutes, and you don't even notice you're doing it. Work, the emails that don't stop, the meetings that could have been a single sentence, the relentless feeling of being busy, very busy, without ever quite knowing if any of it is actually important. And then evening arrives. You sit down to rest, and resting has somehow become a decision. 30 minutes scrolling through options you can't choose between, half watching something while also looking at your phone, and going to bed more tired than when you sat down. Somewhere in the middle of all this, when was the last time you simply felt alive? Not productive, not entertained, not distracted, just present, just here. And the uncomfortable truth that sits just below the surface is this: it isn't working. You have more than people had 50 years ago. More options, more information, more access to everything. And somehow, something essential is missing. What if the smartest thing you could do isn't to get more, but to understand why more keeps leaving you empty? The obvious explanation is that you just haven't found the right thing yet. The right job, the right salary, the right apartment, the right version of the life they promised you. But that's not the full truth. Rarely the whole story. In 1845, long before smartphones, before social media, before any of the technology we use as our excuse, a man named Henry David Thoreau looked at the people around him and saw the same trap you're in. Exhausted people working more and more to buy increasingly unnecessary things. People trapped in jobs they hated to maintain houses they barely enjoyed. People busy, always busy, but never at peace. And he saw this without the internet, without Netflix, without any of the modern machinery of distraction. Which means the problem was never the technology. The problem is something older, something deeper, something in the way we've been taught to measure the value of a life. Psychologist Barry Schwartz at Swarthmore College spent decades studying what happens to people when options and possessions multiply beyond a certain point. His research found something deeply counterintuitive: that beyond a threshold, more choices don't increase satisfaction. They increase anxiety, increase regret, and leave people less happy than they were with less. Not broken, not ungrateful, but overloaded. What if the race you've been running your entire life was never going to lead where they told you it would? Here is what actually happens in that daily exhaustion you carry. Your mind never fully rests anymore. Not at breakfast, not in the car, not at night when the lights go off. Because modern life has quietly filled every margin with input, every pause with stimulation, until silence itself feels uncomfortable. Threatening, even. Psychologists call this cognitive overload. The feeling isn't dramatic. It doesn't announce itself. It just settles into your baseline. A low, persistent drain that makes everything slightly harder than it should be. You feel it as tiredness that sleep doesn't fix, as irritability that comes from nowhere, as the flat feeling on a Sunday evening before a week you haven't even started yet. Your chest tightens, your focus scatters, You switch between tasks without finishing them. And then you check the phone again, not because anything is there, but because the habit has become the way you manage a nervous system that never fully gets to stop. This is not weakness. This is what happens when a human being runs too many processes at once, for too long, without rest. This didn't happen overnight. It was built gradually, through 1,000 small decisions and 1,000 subtle messages, each one telling you the same thing. More is progress. Accumulation is success. Stopping is falling behind. You were given a script early. School, then a good job, then a better job, a car, then a better car, a house, a bigger house. Each stage a rung on a ladder you were told was taking you somewhere important. And somewhere along the way you started climbing without asking. Where does this ladder go? Who built it? Did I choose to be on it? The things you own began to accumulate their own weight. Not just physical space, mental space. The couch you need to worry about, the car demanding maintenance, the subscriptions quietly draining the account. And you became, without noticing the transition, the manager of an inventory you built yourself, spending your weekends maintaining the life you worked all week to afford. Thoreau described it plainly in 1854. He watched men trapped in large houses that required constant labour to maintain, and asked a question nobody around him wanted to answer. Do you own your possessions, or do your possessions own you? Here's what the research says about why this cycle is so difficult to exit. Barry Schwartz's research at Swarthmore College found that when people face an overwhelming number of choices, across domains as mundane as buying coffee or choosing what to watch, something unexpected happens. The more options available, the less satisfied people become with whatever they choose. The mind fixates on what was left behind, on whether something better was missed. Schwartz documented that people oriented toward maximizing, always searching for the best possible option, scored measurably higher on depression scales than those who learned to accept good enough. The abundance that was supposed to bring freedom was quietly producing the opposite, and beneath this sits a deeper mechanism that neuroscience has confirmed, called hedonic adaptation. When we get the thing we wanted, the brain adjusts, the baseline shifts, the pleasure fades, and within weeks or months, you're exactly as satisfied as you were before, except now you need more to achieve the same feeling. The treadmill accelerates, but you never arrive anywhere. This isn't a character flaw, it's how the brain was built. The problem is a culture that uses it against you. We live inside a system designed to keep you permanently dissatisfied. Think about how advertising actually works. It doesn't sell products. It sells the feeling that you are not enough as you are, that your car is slightly too old, that your body is slightly wrong, that your life, your real, ordinary, actually quite adequate life, is a problem that the right purchase can solve. Companies invest billions every year studying human psychology, understanding your deepest insecurities, specifically to generate the feeling of lack. Because a satisfied person doesn't buy anything. Your dissatisfaction is their revenue, and the culture reinforces it. Success has been defined so narrowly: the impressive job title, the recognizable brand, the performative vacation posted for people you barely know, that living quietly and deliberately outside those markers feels like failure, like giving up, like you couldn't make it. But Thoreau asked a question that still has no comfortable answer. Who decided that was success? When did you sit down and choose those metrics for yourself? Or did you simply inherit them, without questioning, without consent? Here is the part that doesn't get said out loud. Behind every compulsive scroll is a quiet exhaustion that doesn't know how to stop. Behind every unnecessary purchase is a small attempt to fill something the purchase never reaches. Behind the busyness, the real busyness, the kind you can't seem to reduce, is a fear of what you might find if you stopped, if you let the silence come, if you sat with yourself without an agenda, without a screen, without something to produce or consume or accomplish. Because somewhere inside you, underneath the accumulation, underneath the performance, there is a person who hasn't been asked in a very long time what they actually want. Not what you should want, not what the script calls for, what you, specifically, actually want from this life. That question is terrifying, so most people keep moving instead. Understanding this doesn't fix anything instantly, but something shifts when you see it clearly. When you realize the exhaustion you carry isn't evidence of weakness. It's the predictable result of a system designed to extract from you constantly and never quite give back. Thoreau understood what he called the real cost of things, not the price tag, the lifetime. Before acquiring anything, he calculated honestly, how many hours of my one existence will I trade for this? And then the question that follows, is it worth it? When you do that calculation honestly, not optimistically, not the way advertising wants you to, the answer changes. That gym membership you pay for but rarely use isn't $20 a month. It's a specific number of hours you sold yourself for something you're not receiving. That's not a judgment. That's just an honest accounting most of us avoid. And when you start doing it, when you start measuring things in lived hours rather than price tags, you start noticing something. Many of the things you work hardest to afford are things you barely enjoy. And many of the things that actually sustain you, quiet, genuine conversation, time in nature, a book read without hurrying, a morning you didn't immediately fill, cost almost nothing. Maybe you've already sensed this. Maybe there have been moments, a walk without headphones, a weekend that somehow felt full without anything happening, where you briefly remembered what it feels like to be present. Thoreau built his cabin for the equivalent of $28. He worked 6 weeks of the year and kept the remaining 46 for thinking, writing, walking and being. Not because he was poor, because he had calculated what enough actually was and decided to stop there. That number is different for everyone, but it exists, and most of us have never looked for it honestly. You might start to notice where your hours actually go. You might find yourself cancelling something you never wanted to commit to. You might sit in silence for 15 minutes, uncomfortable at first, then gradually less so. Not because you have to, because you're starting to understand what the noise has been covering. You don't need to sell everything and move to the woods. Thoreau didn't stay at Walden forever. He went for 2 years, tested his hypothesis, and left. The point was never the cabin. The point was the question the cabin forced him to answer. What's actually essential here? And what am I doing out of fear, habit, or the need to perform a version of myself for an audience that isn't watching as closely as I imagine? The next time you buy something, you might pause for a second. You might ask, is this mine, or am I becoming its? The next time your schedule feels impossible, you might look honestly at how many of those commitments you actually chose, and how many you simply didn't say no to. The next time the silence feels uncomfortable, you might stay in it a little longer than usual, not because someone told you to, because you're starting to understand that discomfort is not the same as danger. A simple life is not a diminished life. It's a cleared life. A life where what remains is actually yours, actually chosen, actually worth the hours you trade for it. Less noise, more signal, less accumulation, more presence. Not a perfect arrival, just a direction worth walking. You already know something is off. You've known for a while. Not everything, not the whole shape of it, but something. The exhaustion that sleep doesn't fix. The fullness that doesn't satisfy. the moving that never quite arrives. That knowing isn't anxiety, that's clarity. Not broken, not behind, not missing something essential. Just carrying too much of what doesn't belong to you. Put it down. Not all at once, not perfectly, just begin. Because the life you actually want isn't at the next level. It's in the space you make when you stop filling everything. Simpler, quieter, yours. If something in this landed, I want to ask you something real. What is one thing you've let go of? A commitment, a possession, a habit, an expectation, and felt genuinely lighter without? Not something you're supposed to say, something true. Share it in the comments, because someone watching right now is still holding something they don't need. And your answer might be exactly the permission they were looking for. I'll be reading everyone